looking at this team on paper, I forget who I was saying this to earlier this year, but like what this Bills team reminded me of in some ways was like that, like 2010, 2011, 2012 Patriots, the way they were in offense, where it was the two tight ends, and then your top receiver is going to be your Wes Welker or your Julian Edelman, and the way Shakir is. And I like when you look at draft pedigree and the way they play on the field, Shakir reminds me of Edelman in some ways. He's that safety blanket for Josh Allen. You create, after the catch, and he can be physical, and which I hate to say. It's really annoying to have to play against that. He's a really good player, and there were some in New England I know that wanted him to land here, and
he went too late. Yeah, I think he's proven that he was at least a second round pick. And even coming out, and I mean, a lot of people. I remember reading a mock that had him going into first, and I was like, okay, that's early. But he's proven to be like what would be a late first round pick in my opinion, and he's been productive enough to really be. I mean, him and Josh are just on the same page. And then you look at him and Curtis Samuel, and they're just not on the same page, and that's going to lose your reps. But it comes to Khalil Shakir. He can't tackle him either. It does remind you of Edelman a lot in the Brady days. And he's been a guy that has worked. And the Bills also have focused on the boundary receiver too. So like obviously they sunk a pseudo first round pick into it, and then traded for Cooper, to where that really stresses most defenses. Most defenses don't have the personnel, and we've seen the Bills score 90 points in back-to-back weeks. But they just haven't had the personnel to match up with what the Bills. Why they bring in 2 tight ends, 3 running backs, and you see Ty Johnson going over 100 yards receiving. It does remind you a lot of the Brady-ish style of days of what he was able to do in some of those mid years there. After the Super Bowls. So the Bills will run a similar offense to that. You're correct. They do use the running backs a ton too.
Yeah, and let me tell you, with this Patriots defense, it does not take a lot to stress it and get it uncomfortable. So, we talked a lot about the offense with the Patriots, but I think the real mismatch here is going to be when Buffalo's offense is on the field, because this might be a repeat of that 2021 wild card game in terms of the way you guys were able to score.
That was going to be my next question for you. Okay, now transition from the high level Patriots for a minute. What is the goals for the Patriots in this game against the Bills? Like, look decent, don't get blown out, but like ultimately, what are you looking for? Like, you're in great position for a Travis Hunter. Like, I always like to ask this because I never know. Everyone has a different opinion. Are you like, let's go spoil the Bills, let's do whatever we can to get some turnovers? They don't care as much. There's only proceeding. Like, where do you see, like, all that would do is keep the Bills in the 2 and ultimately give the Chiefs the 1 seed. But like, where do you stand in, like, what is it from a Patriots perspective? You just want to see growth from May, no injuries. Like, I guess talk to me about from this game now, what are you hoping to see from the Patriots in this game going to Buffalo in this one?
Growth from young players is pretty much the big one. I think, and this is on both sides of the ball, especially after the bye and you have a late bye like this, it feels like the battle started last week on trying to secure jobs for next season on this team. And I think if you're a young player, your goal is to play well enough that you impact the way the front office is going to view, your position this offseason. So obviously May is at the forefront of that. The receivers, like we talked about, Polk and Baker, the offensive lineman, if Cole Strange returns, is he a guy who can play well enough that you think he can start next year? And they're talking about converting him to center. And Ben Brown, who's been the starting center, had 2 bad snaps last week. So if Strange gets in there, that'll be something to watch. And Layden Robinson, if he shows improvement, Caden Wallace, if he can get in and do anything, look like a respectable NFL player. And then defensively, to go with this, you want to see them find anything that's successful. This team is like pretty solid at playing man coverage. Yep. Everything else they have done on defense has been a disaster, and it kind of goes right up the spine. Christian Barmore has missed most of the season, and their defensive tackle depth has been, very bad. These guys get no push whatsoever. So if there's anyone in that defensive tackle room who can show anything, the linebackers have been horrendous. They don't attack blocks. They don't react quickly. They have not been able to cover. Any type of spot drop zone coverage has been, just easy pickings for opposing quarterbacks because the linebackers can't cover. So just get receivers on Shalani Tavai or Christian Ellis or Sione Takitaki, and the game's going to be over. You're just going to get some big plays that way. So improvement from those guys. And I think one player to watch if he plays this week is Kyle Duggar. He got a big extension last year.
I saw that.
And he has been one of New England's worst defenders this year. He's a guy who played really well for the first couple of years in New England. But this year, it's been bad. In Miami, the Dolphins scored 4 touchdowns. He was involved in every single one of them. We're talking multiple blown coverages. We're talking not being able to tackle in the open field. Just mental errors that don't.
Have you sat him, or you said he may be back? Like, are you benching him? Like, I guess what
he has. So he's been battling a foot injury. Okay. We don't know how much of that is an impact, and he was actually out of practice today. And he has been. So he missed time. He came back. Now he's back to being out of practice. So if he plays, we don't know if he's actually
just sit that guy down then. If he's your worst, maybe it's time to wrap it up. Maybe play some young guys. Like, it might be time to wrap him up. But maybe you want to see him get back. I don't.
Well, and then we talk about the safeties and playing young guys. You look at the position right now. Duggar was a guy who's supposed to be a cornerstone player who has been horrendous this season. Jabril Peppers has had an off-field incident that has kept him away from the team for quite a bit. He's back now, but does not look like the same player. They had Marte Mapu, who they drafted as a safety linebacker hybrid last year, and he has been a healthy scratch for the last couple of weeks. He just can't get on the field. They've got Del Pettis as an undrafted free agent who has actually had some nice moments, but he's an undrafted free agent. And then, in some ways, your 2 best safeties have been Jalen Hawkins, who's kind of just a guy who they signed who has had some nice moments, and Brendan Schooler, who is the special teams ace and gunner for this team. They built an entire defensive package for him, which is maybe the most interesting thing about the defense, where they'll basically go blitz 0 with him as a special teams safety on the line of scrimmage, and he's either blitzing or playing some kind of a spy where he's a really good tackler. So
spy Josh Allen with him.
If the Patriots are able to get enough stops on 1st and 2nd down to force 3rd and long, you're going to see that. And you're going to see him either trying to take down Josh Allen in the pocket or spying and trying to
not spying doesn't work. We know that. So spying, you do remove a guy from coverage. Josh Allen can burn that, but I still think that's a better. You got to have a spy on Josh Allen. I don't care if it's Schooler or some random guy, which I guess he technically is, or the All Pro. You have to spy Josh Allen and take your chances in coverage with a lack. He's going to find guys anyway scrambling. So ultimately, the best thing you can do is at least limit what he can see, or at least limit his legs, even if he beats you. That's the best way. If you don't spy him, and you run man, he's going to run for 70 plus yards.
Unless you can get pressure so fast you take him down. Like, if you don't win that, it's over.
And he's on a sack streak too. It's been multiple games since he's been sacked. Now he'll get sacked 3 times, I guess. So the Patriots are probably bottom of the league in sacks, right? Aren't they? I
don't know the raw numbers. I know they're weird because a lot of the advanced metrics think they're somewhere middle of the pack, but that does not match the eye test to me at all. And this is one of the other issues with the defense is that if they go into nickel formation, they can't stop the run out of it at all. So they have to go into heavier looks. But when they go into heavier looks, they cannot pass. They can't cover at all. And they also can't rush the passer because they're putting 3 defensive tackles on the field. And Keon White is at his best as a pass rusher on the inside, the defensive end they took in the 2nd round last year. So now you're moving him to the
nickel then against 11 personnel? Or what would you guys generally?
So against Miami, actually, what they were doing was essentially a 3-4 defense, but with 3 corners and 1 safety. Where Jonathan Jones was kind of a guy who would be your corner or your safety. Like if you're going to be up, he's going to be playing corner, but also if you play a too high look, he's going to be back at safety. It wasn't that effective. It was something different. And the core issue here is that if you have 3 defensive tackles, and then Keon White and Anthony Jennings as outside linebackers, and they just couldn't generate pressure. And then you can, as an offense, you can design looks where that Keon White's going to have to drop into coverage. So it's 3 defensive tackles and Anthony Jennings, and you've got Keon White in coverage. Like, that's a nightmare.
And you got only 11 turnovers on the year. The Bills have only turned the ball over 7 times, league low. Like, I mean, that's got to be a challenge. Only 11 turnovers.
Yeah. No, they haven't. They have not been able to force it. And they forced one last week. They actually had one really nice play. It was a third down. They brought the blitz package and everything. They get pressure on Kyler. He panics and throws a pick, and they get a roughing the passer penalty on it, so it gets called back. The one good play the defense makes the entire game, which also been that kind of season. Also, I don't know their overall sack numbers, but I do know that whatever you're seeing for numbers, they had 9 sacks against the Bears. So know that it's kind of inflated by playing Caleb and having one really, really good game on defense.
Oh, he's so bad. I mean, I would take May over him. Like, he can't see the defense. Like, I don't know what's wrong with that guy, but he holds the ball way too long. I'm feeling good if I was any of the other teams. We'll see about Penix, but I'm feeling good if I'm any of the other teams that picked after that.
Yeah.
I mean, that just
okay. Yeah, I looked up. The Patriots have 27 sacks this year, which is 28th in the NFL.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And 9 of those in one game. So if you take those out, they have 18 in the other ones, which would be worst in the league.
Yikes. Okay.
Matt, so that being said, what can you say about the defensive line? Because, tying this into what we said about the offense, and that was always a staple of the Bill Belichick teams, that you would win up front at the line of scrimmage with the offensive lines and the defensive lines. It seems like they've had a pretty lackluster season, though, up front. Would you agree with that?
Lackluster might be charitable here. Yeah, there's been some really a combination of bad luck and also decisions looking for the future. So they traded away.
They traded Judon and Uche too.
Yeah. You trade Judon, which they got a 3rd-round pick for that, which looks fantastic. The Falcons are last in the NFL in sacks, even with that addition. They cut Lawrence Guy, who was one of their veteran run defenders on the inside. They were counting on filling that roster spot with someone younger, giving the opportunity for someone to win that job. No one has really stepped up into it. You trade Uche during the season because he's not playing well. I don't know if it means much. They signed O'Shane Zimenez over the offseason to be kind of your backup Uche, and he tore his ACL like 2 weeks into the season. So he's been out. And then the big one, Barmore, who broke out last year and got an extension, had a pulmonary embolism right at the start of training camp.
Yikes.
Yeah, so thankfully he's healthy and he's now back to playing, but he's not nearly what he was last year. They're just getting him out there to get some experience. So it's Keon White has been a good player and probably the best player in their front, but he is someone who is best as a pass rusher on the inside, and he also can't defend the run if you put him on the inside. So,
you did sign Yannick Ngakoue. You did take him off waivers, right?
I forgot we made that move.
Yeah,
I think that says
he's a guy that Bills fans wanted as depth, and the Patriots are like, nah, he's coming here, man. He's going to finish out the season here. It was interesting. That's an interesting move.
Yeah, he has. I mean, he's been. This is the other issue for this team is because they don't stop the run. They don't get into spots to put the pass rushers on the field.
He can't be on the field, right?
Yeah, he's not playing a lot, and he hasn't been noticeable when he's out there. So then they got like Devon Godshaw at nose tackle, who's a fine player, but you're just asking way too much of one player. So again, it's the defensive line has kind of slowly degraded over the last 5 years. And if you look ahead to the future for the Patriots in this draft class, there's obviously, I think Travis Hunter is the sexy pick at the top. If you don't go that way, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, a defensive end or outside linebacker, and a defensive tackle, there are guys who could very well be fits for this team.
So we're talking about their different defensive coverages, and I know you've talked about a few, but like, what's their primary look? Because I was looking at our lads, and it looks like they have them playing a 3-3-5. And then I know you talked about they play that one safety high, they play nickel. I mean, did they ever play 4-3? So could you just kind of sum it all up in terms of like what we could be seeing? Like, I know Belichick used to mix it up a lot. Like, do they mix it up, or are they primarily a set 3-4-4-3?
They're going to mix it up. It's just going to depend on look. So like you'll see typically in running situations, it's going to be an odd front. Probably it's going to be 5 people, and they're going to put like Like it's on our lads, Keon White goes down as a defensive end, but in situations like that, they're going to kick him to outside linebacker and they're going to put an extra defensive tackle in on the front. In passing situations, they've gone more even fronts, 4-man, or when they really want to bring their blitzes to put 6, even 7 people on the line of scrimmage. So, you're going to see that variety, but it feels mostly like a 3-4 a lot of the time. And then you will see like the 4-2-5 look with just 2 defensive tackles, 2 defensive ends, and 2 linebackers off the ball. But they're gonna. The thing for New England, they'll throw a lot at you. They just haven't been good at executing it. So like the coverage disguises don't work because the players don't cover well enough out of them, and they don't rush the passer.
And you run a lot of man, right?
Yeah, there's just going to be a lot of man because when you have corners like this, you want to.